Thank you, Regina, for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I would like to start off by understanding your role. So I see that you uh, are the head of learning, development, and diversity at Lalit Suri Hospitality Group, Keshav Suri Foundation, and It Gets Better India project. So if you can help us understand your role a little better.
Sure. So, as you've very kindly mentioned, I've been, I think, born and brought up in the hospitality industry. So I've been with hotels all my life, all of my working life, and I started my career very young as a management trainee. Was in operations and then moved on to take care of learning and development. And that's where actually I found my passion. So, as part of my portfolio as a learning and development manager, I was also responsible for corporate social responsibility of the company. And with that, it gave me exposure to working with street youth, with old people, with people with disability. And I realized, that I have a bent of mind and my personality is more inclined towards all of these activities and gave me a lot of satisfaction, from within. When I joined the Lalit Suri Hospitality Group, and now I've been with the group for the last 7 years, all my life I used to think I'm an ally to the LGBTQ community. I had friends from the community, and it was all, great. But when I started working with the group and the Keshav Suri Foundation launched, I more and more interactions happened, and that was an educational experience for me as well. We might consider ourselves as allies, but it's only when we interact with the community do we realize the struggles, the hardships, and so many inequalities they face on a personal basis, on a day to day scenario. So that's, I would say, an educational experience for me. And also, it's been very gratifying. I think we've worked a lot with the community, not only educating ourselves, but educating others, sensitizing, and worked with other companies. We've carried out sensitization sessions for other companies. And like you mentioned, now the Keshav Suri Foundation has tied up with Pride Circle as well as the Stonewall Index in UK, which has been going on for the last 15 years, and getting it to India for the first time. For the first time, there will be an index that will be studying, I won't call it rating, but studying companies on their best practices for diversity and inclusion, because diversity and inclusion is not just a good thing to do, it also makes business sense. So that's my role. I take care of the running of the Keshav Suri Foundation as well as It Gets Better India. Now this is a project that was started in the US a long time back, and it started as a simple video that went viral on YouTube. And what that did was actually spark a movement back there, because there were rising number of cases of teenage suicide. We all know that bullying starts in school, right? And especially kids who don't conform to the binary, it becomes even worse. And there are a lot of cases even in India that we tend to look the other way, right? But so we've got this project in India, and we're leading that as one of the key initiatives of the Keshav Suri Foundation. And our job is to collect videos of people from the community and as well as allies. These are messages of support. These are messages of coming out stories. And our aim is that, we all live in cities, and we live in a bubble, and we think that, everything is hunky dory. But actually, if you go down to the interiors of the country and, the B towns and the C towns, and there, when there is a queer kid who
Yeah.
feels that they are completely alone, absolutely different from anybody and everybody they see around, if they happen to come across such a video, then it's a huge reassurance for them. It tells them that they are not crazy, and that the world is fine, and there will be a point in time where it will get better. So that's the whole project. And yes, as part of the project, we were chosen. We represented India in the World Pride last year. This year again, of course, because of the pandemic, everything has gone virtual. So there will be a virtual summit again. So that's my role. I love what I do. And as part of this, platforms like yours invite us so that we can talk about our work more.
I'm so happy to hear that there's more media representation. And interestingly enough, I was having a conversation with a person. He's very famous in the community. In fact, he's very famous in India. And he also narrated his story and told me that when he was growing up, it was very difficult for him because he did not see anybody like him. So he thought that he is unique and nobody else goes through this. I'm happy that you are part of a project which is making other people's life better. So asking you the next question for today, and this is a little elongated and elaborated one, but my favorite one for the evening. So if you can help us, if you can give us three initiatives or three stories related to upskilling, reskilling, uh, you have done for your organizations.
Sure. So I feel that learning and development ties very closely to all D&I initiatives, because learning and development is about change. It's about addressing gaps when it comes to attitude, skills, and knowledge, right? Ultimately, converting them into habits. As part of our whole journey, the first thing that we did was sensitization. Sensitization of all the people who were working at the Lalit. So, if our aim was to hire people from the community so that we could find representation within our company, the other mammoth task was to make sure that the remaining people, the people who are already associated with the company, are of such a mindset, and they know that what is respectful and what is not. So their sensitization had to happen. So, and that cannot happen with one session, right? Our stereotypes, our biases, our unconscious biases are so deeply ingrained that even though I, do this for a living, I myself find myself, talking about stereotypes unconsciously, and somebody until somebody else points it out and calls it out. And it is a journey, right? It cannot, we as human beings cannot function without having stereotypes in our mind. But an evolved individual is somebody who recognizes that and is able to make their decisions beyond the stereotypes. So one of the mammoth exercises that we took place, that we carried out at the Lalit, was sensitization sessions. Uh, and that started with basic knowledge of what is LGBTQ, why is it important to have people from different walks of life, from people who are different from you, right? We tend to like people who are like us, and that is, called the mirroring effect. But also working with people with disabilities. So the Pure Love campaign was, that's what we call our diversity campaign. The Pure Love campaign was not only about LGBTQ people, it was also about improving the gender ratio. Why is it that some roles are just considered that only a man can do it and a woman can't, right? Why is it that we tend to shy away from hiring a woman who has just got married, because we start to think in our mind, oh, now she's going to have children, and now, she will not be able to come to work, and we'll have to pay her for her maternity leave. So these are biases that are so deep that we don't even recognize them. Also, people with disability, we tend to have this attitude of sympathy towards them. And the more I have worked with the community of people with disability, I have understood that all they need is equal opportunities and respect. So I'm actually very happy to say that we have a DJ who is on a wheelchair, and he's actually in the Limca Book of Records because he's the only DJ in our country to be playing from a wheelchair. And there are documentaries that are made on him. And he was not born like this. He got it. He suffered an accident, and that's how he became like that. And he was not always a DJ. He started learning DJing and learned music after he met with an accident. So unfortunate, but he's turned it around. And today, when we also have a hotel management college, and when I take him there to give a motivational talk, you have to see the kind of attention he commands. All the students are completely glued on to every word that he speaks. So these stories are huge. They inspire people, not only employees of the Lalit, but also guests. There are so many customers who say that, we are happy to spend our money at the Lalit because we know it's going for a good cause. So it works beautifully, not only as employee value proposition, but also for our customer branding. The other thing that we did as part of our hiring process, we realized that not a lot of skilled people from the LGBTQ community were available, because many of them face such personal hardships that often at the cost of their own education, because they tend to leave education midway, their families disown them, suddenly they find themselves on the street having to fend for themselves. So they end up leaving their education midway. So when we wanted to hire people, we realized that we don't have skilled people. So we took a step back and we said, why don't we launch an apprenticeship program, a skill program, which was absolutely devoid of any kind of barrier, any kind of qualification barrier. So even if you were 10th pass, all you had to do was come to the hotel and say that, yes, I want to work. And funnily enough, of course, none of them knew what a five-star hotel is. They might have seen it from the outside, but they had no idea what goes into the functioning of a hotel. So we actually take 2 days and we show them around the hotel, saying that this department does this, the other department does this. Once they understand the workings, the internal workings of a hotel, then they somewhat find that, okay, I find myself fitting over here. And that's when we do their training program, and they are able to skill themselves in that particular skill. I'm very happy to say that many of them have passed out, and few of them have got absorbed even at the Lalit. So they are working with us. They're very happy. Few of them have got absorbed in other companies. And so this has worked, and all of this has been possible because of our own network, because of the Keshav Suri Foundation, and other companies who have raised their hand and said that, yes, we also want to hire people from the LGBTQ community. So it's extremely gratifying, this program. Another program, the third program that I'd like to talk about today, is the KSF Fellowship Program. Now, this was launched in association with Canadian Consulate, and we had psychologist Deepak Kashyap, who was the program director. These candidates were picked up from a state of the country. So in all, we had approximately 2022 fellows who came from different parts of the country. And the idea was to make them into leaders. See, the fight for LGBTQ inclusion and equal rights is not something that can happen very, very quickly. And we need leaders. We need voices coming from different parts of the country saying that, yes, this is what we need for equal rights. Right? Just today, just before our panel, there has been an announcement by Delhi High Court where it's saying that Special Marriage Act should be applied to same-sex couples. Now, all of this is happening because petitions have come from different parts of the country. So it's very important to cultivate leaders from the community and equip them with skills that moves them beyond just mere activism and protests. Right? It's very important to bring about change. You have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a way to go about things. Everything cannot be achieved just by protesting and just by slogan shouting. So that is what we equipped them with. And it was, again, a very gratifying experience, because even within the community, there are fissures, there are stereotypes, there are biases. So and the only way to overcome all of this is by education, is by conversation. The more we talk about it, the more, the fear of the unknown goes away, and people get to know that, these are the struggles that, let's say, the lesbian community faces. These are the struggles, let's say, people with disability face. These are the struggles that women still today in our country face, and it just makes them more empathetic. So, yeah, these are the three main things that I'd like to talk about today, which I feel are very, very, closely knit to the learning and development function. So, upskilling, reskilling, and complete education.
Right. So, three very different initiatives which you have taken up, and three very different goals you tried to achieve. So, if you can help us again break it down a little bit more. So, the first initiative which you talked about, where you took individuals from the community, trained them to further train people, to further sensitize people. So, what was the program like, and what all did you end up achieving?
So while we were sensitizing our folks, we used a lot of people from the community to conduct these sessions. And nothing speaks louder than representation, Regina. You know, I can speak about the unicorn, which is a mythical creature, and we'll all form a picture in our head and we'll have our biases until we actually meet the unicorn. Yes. So when we had people from the LGBTQ community talking about their lived experience, saying how they feel when they walk down the road or they board the metro, or there are examples of people who've got hired, but the environment is so discriminatory, it's so bullying that they are constantly a subject of jokes and trolling on the net. Many of them, especially the trans community, many of them. As women, I would say we today are living a privileged life because somebody fought our battles
Yeah.
few years ago. It is not many years ago, but 20 years ago, I know of offices that did not have a washroom for women. So women at work did not know where they could go to relieve themselves. And now I walk into a place, to an office, and it's a given. Yes. So I assume it to be my right and a facility that's a no brainer. Now, when we hire trans folks, and this is a process where a gender neutral washroom is very, very important for them. There are trans folks today in many offices that don't drink water, so they don't have to go to the washroom because there is no gender neutral washroom there. Now this is something that gives me goosebumps and it makes me very, very angry. So I think facilities, apart from sensitization, there's also facilities, which is very important. And when our people from the community spoke about these experiences, these lived experiences with people who were in the audience and who were listening, that's when a light bulb went off in their head. That's when there is an aha moment and you're able to identify that, oh my god, something that I take for granted is an issue in somebody's life. For example, we have steps in your workplaces, in our homes, in our workplaces. We have steps, and we don't spare even a second to think about it. But a person who uses a wheelchair, it's a huge barrier for them.
Right.
So we've created these divides in a societal manner, and when you hear an experience that a person is living on a day in and day out basis, it really opens your eyes. You really become empathetic, and I think with that you just become a better ally, you just become a better person. And more so because we are from the service industry, yeah? We are from the hospitality industry. We get customers from all walks of life. We get customers who are with disability. We also get customers who are from the community. So I would say, and I'm very proud to say, that many of these customers have such beautiful feedback to give, that not once were they stared at, not once were they treated with disrespect. Now, let's say, in a pre-COVID era, I had in our Delhi hotel about 1,000 people. Can I say with absolute certainty that all 1,000 of them are sensitized? Maybe yes, maybe no. But are they able to give a respectful experience to customers? 100% yes. And that has only happened because we've got all of these people from different walks of life talking about their experience. So I think that's something that we've done very successfully.
Interesting thing that you pointed out was that we can take from the women's movement and maybe try to modify it a little and use it for other communities and try to build a more inclusive space. Um, so let's talk about the second initiative, where you talked, I think, about hiring people from LGBTQ plus community. So what were the challenges initially you faced when you wanted to take up, this hiring drive, and how did you overcome this? So one thing which you pointed out was that you did not limit uh, anything. So you did not say that you need to have this educational background or that. It was that anybody who wants to learn can come. So how did you exactly train them? What was the mode you took to train them? And where are they placed now?
Okay. So, yes, the skilling program was an afterthought. We wanted to, like I said, wanted to hire people more and more from the community because we realized, like I said before, representation is the biggest sensitization. But while we set out to hire, we could not find people who were skilled enough. And we then took a step back and said that, okay, let's just open up the gates and let's just see what comes our way. So we found people who were in living in a very poor condition, from very poor economic backgrounds, from very orthodox backgrounds, where their families had mistreated them, physically abused them, all kinds of horror stories I heard, Regina. I mean, it really scares me that even in today's day and age, there is all of these practices that are being carried out. So, of course, the first thing, of course, was humanitarian. We wanted to help them. Um, then the second challenge that I faced was, how do I train them on a skill that they have no idea about? So, luckily for us, we are not a very high tech industry, right? Hospitality, the only thing you need in hospitality is a great attitude. If you have an attitude of hard work, if you have an attitude to serve, if serving others brings a smile to your face, then everything else can be taught. So we set about from ground zero. And like I said, sensitization had already happened, but we allocated each one of them a buddy. So the buddy's job was to make sure that their training, small things like uniform, attendance, where should I go have my food, who can I talk to if I have, let's say, a fever, where do I go if I'm having some sort of the other problems. So that is the buddy's job, and the buddy would shadow for a month and make sure that the person's learning journey is smooth. Of course, since we're not a very large organization, we knew these people by name. So interaction, my team interacted with them on almost like on a alternate day basis. Another thing that we have to make sure that all of the people from the community feel safe and feel heard is an employee resource group. It's called the Pure Love Employee Resource Group. And that is just, you can say, like a club of people from marginalized communities. So there are people from the community, there are people who have a disability, and of course that group also has the HR representative and the diversity team representative. So this group meets on a monthly basis where they talk about any small thing that might have happened that would so that we can pick up early warning signals very quickly. And also, what can we do to make sure that this conversation is alive? Because it is not the one time activity, it's something that we have to do on a very regular basis. So what can we do? So celebrating things like International Day against homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, the International Coming Out Day, the Human Rights Day, and so on. So all of these days are very important to celebrate because they bring back the attention on diversity and inclusion. And again, this becomes an educational experience for everyone, not only from the community, but outside the community, right? So, yes, this is how we did the second initiative, that is attaching a buddy, making sure that Pure Love ERG was active and listening to their issues, if any. And today, there are people who are working within the system, and I would like to tell you that during the pandemic, not a single person from the community was sent on furlough. They were, as part of the company, they were not sent to the bench. They were getting their salaries on time every month. So I'm very happy to say that it is not something that we do only when the times are good, but we stick by them through all times. And yeah, I think that's been the journey. There have been a couple of people who got jobs outside. So, for example, one of our trainees got posted in Adobe. Adobe has their office in Noida, and in their staff cafeteria, because he trained with us in kitchen, he could work in their cafeteria and make food for employees of Adobe. So we're very happy that some of them got placements in multinational companies, and today they are respected in their families because they are a breadwinner. They are not dependent on them financially, they are independent, and their families have accepted them back. Their families have treat them with respect, and have come to realize that being from the community is just an aspect of them, it's not their whole self. They can still be uh, members of the society at large, and produce for the country.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing those stories. It's wonderful to hear that you're actually making a mark in the society. And the person who got placed in Adobe is something which is amazing, because that is where he or she could use his or her skill and translate it to another industry. Interesting. Now, the third one, your third initiative, which you mentioned, is the one which I am very keen to understand, because here you're building leaders. So leaders build more leaders. So it's going to be one of the most appreciated initiatives, I am sure. If you can help us understand what was your objective, what kind of people you took on for this initiative, and how did you make them industry ready?
Right. So the idea, like I said, Regina, was to build leaders of the LGBTQ community, by the community, for the community. The idea was to bring fresh voices to the fore. We cannot have the same activists going about the agenda over and over. We need fresh voices, because ultimately then the narrative boils down to, are there only 5 people who are impacted in the community? So we need fresh voices, we need the youth of the country to speak up. So it was very important that this age bracket was there. So we only wanted to pick up people in the age bracket of 20 to 30. We also did not want to pick up more than one person from one state, so that we have representation of the country. So issues of Northeast India are very different from issues in the south and the north and the west. And so yes, so picking up from there. So I think our recruitment process was something that took us a lot of time to pick up these people individually, also basis their body of work. So these were not just people from the community who hadn't worked for the community. These were already activists. These were already people who were wanting to make a change in the society. So they had done some small projects, some small campaigns in their own respective state. Many of them had carried out pride marches in their own states. So there is a pride march, I didn't know this, but there's a pride march in different times of the year in our different states of the country. So there's a Bihar Pride March, there is Chhattisgarh Pride March, there's a Nagpur Pride March. I mean, and places that you can't even imagine that there would be a Pride March, but very strong communities. And we've come to respect the kind of work they have done. But again, the idea was to bring them out of that and have a national agenda on board. How do you push for equal rights when section 377 has just been decriminalized 2 years ago? Things like same-sex insurance, things like alimony, divorce, marriage rights, inheritance rights, all of these things, adoption rights, all of these things are not available to people from the community. And this, like I said, or this change cannot just be achieved just by protests and demonstrations. There has to be a intelligent, a calculative approach to achieve all of this, and it takes a certain kind of cohesion. So when you have a voice which is rising from one state, but then you have voices, because it is a connected network. And today there are 20 KSF fellows who are working in their own respective states, but they are connected. So if let's say I am a KSF fellow who is based out of Assam, I can very easily reach somebody in Gujarat, and I can very easily reach somebody in Haryana and collaborate very quickly. And then suddenly it gains national interest, because it's not just a state agenda, it becomes a national agenda, right? So that was the idea behind it. And I'm very happy to say that this was a 3-day long program. It was a completely residential program, and they got exposed to things like psychology, things like peer counseling, things like self care. How, if you are going to take care of other people, you should also know how to take care of yourselves. Information about people, different segments within the community. So many of us do not understand the Hijra community. Many of us do not understand what intersex is. Many of us do not understand what non-binary is. So it's a continuous education. It's a breaking down of many myths, and many stereotypes thereafter. And I would say that I'm very proud of the kind of work that these 20 KSF fellows have been able to achieve since the time they've passed out. We only did this in February, actually. And after that, of course, we had the pandemic, and not much on ground activation could be achieved. But there's a lot of relief work that the foundation did, which had distributing of food, soaps, masks, and all of that. And because of this network, we were able to reach interiors of the country, where people actually needed help.
Right. So before we go on to the next few questions, I would like to remind the audience that please do ask us as many questions as possible. And we'll take them up as we go. In fact, Richa, if you want, we can take up the one question uh, which has been posted by one of the attendees.
Okay.
Uh, so the attendee wants to know, does LND head and DNI head work closely together? I think they're trying to understand how they're interconnected.
Thank you for the question. It is true that in many companies, the L&D head and DNI head are two different people. Fortunately, in our company, it's the same person. That's me. And it has certainly made things easier for me, because, like I said, the journey to any kind of change begins with learning and development. It begins with conversations, it begins with sensitization sessions. So we cannot proceed further until people are educated, until people are sensitized. So yes, these are very closely knit together. Having said that, yes, there are many large companies in which the positions are separate. So the L&D head is a separate person, and the DNI lead is a separate person.
All right. So when I was going through your website, I saw that there are three uh, diverse groups which you have mentioned on your website. One being LGBTQ, the other PWD, and the third is acid attack survivors. Now, I understand what you would have done with LGBTQ, and you have helped us with the initiatives you have taken up. I also can picture sort of what you would have done for people with disability. But acid attack survivor is something unique, which I think only you are talking about. So, can you help us understand what initiative did you take to help them?
Yes. So thank you actually for bringing that to my notice. According to the law, the acid attack survivors are grouped under the people with disability section. So, as per law, you should have a certain percentage of people with disability working in all organizations. So, I'm actually, it's very sad to say that we still are not following the law in letter and spirit. Yes, PSUs are doing it because they are auditable, but many private organizations are still not following that percentage. So the first step I would urge everybody who is listening is get that representation, get that percentage of people, even when it comes to women or people with disability. I mean, of course there is no ruling when it comes to the LGBT community, but definitely at least do this. It would I think, like I said, it's not just the right thing to do. It's also something that will make you a better person, will make the workplace a better place to work. And there is a business case for diversity, Regina. It is not something that we do to look good. It makes us money, and it's proved. There are studies by the World Bank, which pegs, it's something called the pink economy, right, which pegs that if you have people from, let's say, women who come and patronize only you because you are a women friendly organization, there is a huge community of people with disability who come and patronize only you because your place is accessible. You have the ramps and the braille and the visual indicators, which makes it much easier for people with disability to come and patronize you. Similarly, acid attack survivors, right? When we started working with acid attack survivors, that happened with the help of an NGO called Make Love Not Scars. And it started with a crowdfunding call that we came across. And here was a person who had been attacked by acid thrown at her face. And for her surgery, she was collecting money. And one of us came across that call, and it spread like wildfire within our organization, and soon a lot of us were contributing to the cause. But then we also thought about what can we do with the survivors on a consistent basis. Now you have to know, when there's an acid attack survivor, their confidence level goes into the negative. It's not even zero, it goes into the negative. They are afraid to come out in the open. Firstly, because they are conscious of their own appearance, and also because they have received stares, and they have received feedback like, oh, I don't want to look at you because you are a bad omen. I don't want my people who work in the company, I don't want them getting scared looking at you. So this was very, very sad to hear and sad to listen. So we started a skilling program also for them, where, like I said, again, unfortunately, many of them were belonging to very poor economic backgrounds, and they did not have educational qualifications. So we said that, okay, how is it that we can meet the two criteria? One is the person doesn't want to go out into the public, doesn't want to, mostly, I'm not saying all of them, but 95% of them don't want to go out in the open. So they want to be in a confined space, and also that they don't have skills. I can't have them working in, let's say, housekeeping, or so on. So there is, every good five-star hotel will have something called a flower room, and their job is to make flower arrangements, which you see in different parts of the hotel. So we had them sit over there and learn how to make flower arrangements. And I'm very happy to say that there was an HR conference where I was relaying this exact initiative, and there was somebody from Ferns and Petals who was in the audience, and they caught me after the conference, and they said, this is great, we'd like to hire people who you have trained to come and work for Ferns and Petals. So even though we may not have the ability, we may not have the end goal in mind, we may not have the ability to absorb all of these people, but I have seen that if you do something with a good intention, and with a pure heart, we find, I would say, accomplices along the way, not even allies, accomplices along the way, who are ready to be with you on this journey and help you.
So that's wonderful that you were able to help them in such a beautiful way. So, Richa, if possible, can we take a couple of questions before we go again? And so we have interesting questions which are coming up, and here is your opportunity to post more questions. So we have an attendee. He says, "Hey, my name is Akshay Singh. Hi, Akshay. Thank you for attending. Welcome to the session." So he wants to say, "I wanted to understand how universities and colleges can help in this initiative of upskilling and DNI."
Great. I thank you, Akshay, for the question. I feel universities have something already going on for them, right? You have young folks who the millennial population thinks D&I is a no-brainer. They do not differentiate, and I can say that with absolute certainty because I go for campus interviews. And when I recruit people, one of the things that I hear very often and almost in every answer that I ask is, we want to work with the Lalit because you are an inclusive company. So it is a no-brainer with the millennials that diversity and inclusion is a way of life. We don't have to do much about it. But so yes, universities and colleges already have something going for them. Many universities have something like I mentioned, the ERG. They have these clubs going on, which is pushing the agenda of diversity and inclusion, celebrating days, doing pride marches, having conferences, having speakers on a webinar like this, talk to people and make it as interactive as possible. The other bit is, of course, the professor community, right? So the universities has two bits, and there are two separate generations. So we'll have to see the sensitization of the professor folks, of the teaching community, whether they are accepting of students from the LGBTQ community. Secondly, is there a very strict dress code in your own university or college? Are you restricting people based on their gender as to how they should come to class, how they should appear on the campus? So that's another thing. The third thing, like I said, in terms of facilities, very, very, very important to have gender neutral washrooms. Have policies, look at your forms, look at your admission forms, look at your website. Do you use gender neutral language? Now, all of these things are quick wins, can be very easily done. And yes, definitely will make your own campus a very attractive place to be.
All right. Akshay, thank you for that question. It was an interesting one for sure. We have a lot of questions which are pouring in, so I'm going to take one by one, and Richa, you can answer them as we go. So the next question coming your way is, what elements should good online training for employees include? So good online training should include what sort of elements?
Are you talking about diversity and inclusion training specifically?
The attendee does not specify, but let's take D&I into account.
So I'm actually very happy to say that we have an e-learning module that we're going to launch very, very soon. And actually, this is the first public platform I'm speaking about it. And we are going to have three specific modules on diversity and inclusion on available online. So anybody and everybody can actually go onto the website, book themselves for a session and undergo that module. Now, these modules are instructor led. So they are basically built training modules, virtual instructor led trainings. In a typically in an online, any kind of module, I think some sort of engagement is important. So have pop quizzes, in the middle of the slide, so that you know that the person is retaining and actually reading the information. Make it as attractive as you can. Have some element of gamification. Also have some element of videos, because we realize that more and more of our attention span is becoming as good as that of a goldfish. So have micro learnings, have small learning nuggets. Don't make your training sessions a day long and very, very long. I think if a session is 45 minutes, 1 hour, it's good enough, and you can have a series of them. So yeah, these are the elements that really help online training. Quizzes, gamification, video content, all of this helps. And definitely an option to share it on your social handles. So we all want to talk about our accomplishments, and there should be a very easy button to do that.
All right. The next one is, how does L&D help retain diverse talent?
Wow, that's a good one. Um, I feel that any employee, not only people from the community, but any employee will stick with their organization if they find that they are growing and developing. A person, as soon as they start feeling that they're stagnating, they start becoming disengaged. So, learning is a lifelong process. And when I say growing and developing, Regina, growth is not always vertical, it can also be horizontal. So, there is something called job enrichment. How, if my job involves a set number of tasks, how do I take on more responsibility? And the more I enrich my job, the more I'm readying myself for the next level. So, learning and development is very, very closely linked to growth, and and that is the only way to retain employees. Um, there are many factors, of course, when we talk about the whole Maslow's need of all of that, but basic hygiene apart, money apart, how a person is treated in the organization, if your leader, if your manager, supervisor, whoever takes an interest in you, and when I say interest in you means they care about your growth and development, they care about what you learn while you're at work. So it is very, very intricately tied up together.
All right. Thank you for that answer. Even I found it quite interesting. It just goes to show that learning and development really does work closely with DNI. So DNI helps with all the policies and hiring, but L&D helps in retaining all of that talent. And once you do have this diverse pool, which is working closely in your organization is happy to work there, then you will obviously attract more diverse talent. So it's a loop you're working in. So thank you for sharing that, Richa. The next question for the evening is, as someone who would like to help and support someone LGBTQ people deal with taunting in the office. Oh, so this person wants to know how to help people they see are being taunted because of who they are, how to help them.
So I think that's a very important question. And I spoke about allies. Now, being an ally does not mean that you're friends with the community. It also means that then be a true friend. Speak up and speak out when you see an injustice is happening. I'm not saying that get physical or get into a fist fight. No, but you should have that self assurance and that confidence to stop that taunting or that bullying that's happening. You should go up and say that that is not acceptable. That kind of behavior is not acceptable. Now, I know for a fact that many allies hesitate to do that. They hesitate to do that because at some level they themselves are scared of being branded LGBT. That they might receive a comment that, why are you so interested, are you also from the community? It is well, any kind of injustice, any kind of taunting or bullying that's happening, if somebody has the courage to stand up and protect somebody else's rights, it just tells that you're a better person. If any movement is incomplete without allies. The women's movement would not have been possible if there were not strong men with us. And by strong, I don't mean by strength. I mean mentally, confidence. They had the confidence that yes, bringing women to workplace, fighting for their rights is only going to make this world a better place. I mean, what better example can we give than this pandemic? The countries that had women leaders, it was covered in media again and again that those countries did a far better job than other countries in dealing with the pandemic. So the feminine is important. And by feminine, it does not mean women. Feminine traits are there in men. Feminine traits are there in the LGBTQ community. Respecting everybody for who they are. I think if we have a core value of respect, then all of this can be handled. So being an ally is not an easy thing to do, but is the right thing to do.
And the necessary thing to do in today's day and time. Uh, so before we go on to the next question by the audience, I would like to ask you the final question uh, from our side for the evening. So I saw that you have a very interesting program you took for your female staff. So the program which I'm talking about is a WEST training course.
Yeah.
So can you help us understand what it is, because it gained a lot of traction and it gained a lot of need. It was covered again and again in the media.
Yeah.
Were you able to carry it forward during COVID? Because it would be difficult to do. So if you can help us understand what it is, what are its future plans, that would be great.
Right. So you're right about the media attention it got. We didn't expect it. But like I said, Regina, if you set out to do something, you don't do it with the intention of getting the media attention or finding the right partners along the way. It just so happens. So we had a beverage company approach us and say that, you do a lot for women and you believe in a lot of women representation. We have a restaurant on our top floor called Oko, and the USP of that restaurant is that it has an all women's fleet. So all people who are working in the restaurant are women, and we wanted to have that as a USP. And so the W set is a wine and spirit education training that is an internationally recognized qualification for people to have wine and spirits knowledge. It's mostly about wines, and we had a sommelier. Sommelier is a wine expert who is the first sommelier trained in WSET in all levels, and she came down specially to conduct this for our team in Oko. So everybody who was part of the restaurant, it was a day-long training, and then it is followed by an online exam, which is very difficult to crack, let me tell you. And but I'm very happy to say that all of them did. And this was a completely sponsored program, so it was taken care of. The participants didn't have to kind of do anything apart from attend. And yes, so we had a women sommelier conducting it for women participants, and they is equipping them with skills when it comes to wine. And I would say that the effect it has had is definitely attracting more women employees. So we've had more applications for jobs from women. It has also helped us brand ourselves as a place which is safe for women and which cares about their growth and development. And definitely having a restaurant with an all women fleet is very, very attractive for customers and guests. So it's been a win-win all round. And definitely, like you said, this is a program that unfortunately cannot be done virtually because it involves a lot of wine tasting. Can't be done virtually. So we are waiting for things to go back to normal or before, where we can conduct an in-person training, and we'll definitely do a second round of that.
All right. I wish you all the very best. And I hope we get to have a conversation with you again in the future where we can discuss the success for such initiatives. So, the last question for the evening, and this one is coming from the audience. Uh, and again, this is something I think, Richa, you have intrigued a lot of people attending today, and they are a little curious about what you're up to, because this person wants to know what diversity, inclusion, and cultural competence training are you working on currently?
Okay, so thank you. See, learning is a lifelong exercise. So I'm actually very happy to tell you that I myself am undergoing a diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which is for the first time it's being conducted by FICCI in association with Conscious Development. So it's a 2-month long program on a weekly basis. We attend these classes. So I'm learning a lot. And when it comes to imparting training, we've had a number of training modules that we've developed. We've developed a lot of content because there was a dearth of good content. So we said that why not, let's start from scratch here as well. So there are three very specific modules that we have. One is on the basics of LGBT. What do these letters mean? What is L? What is G? What is B? Right? The importance of pronouns, the importance of what do gender neutral policies look like, why and what does it mean to be called an equal opportunity employer, and things like that. So the basics of LGBT. Our second module is on the history of the whole LGBTQ movement worldwide and in India, and what does the law say as of today. And the third module we have is on the business case of diversity. Why is it important to have a diverse set of people work in your organization? It is not, like I said, not just a good thing to do, but the right thing to do, and also it makes you money. So you have diversity of thought, you have creativity at its best, you have people bringing their authentic self to work, and definitely faster solutions to more complex problems. So yeah, that's that. Those are the three modules that we've developed. We are in the process of developing another one, which is on unconscious bias. We all have biases within us, and some of them are so deep that we don't even realize them. So, like I said, an evolved leader is somebody who recognizes their biases and is able to function beyond them. So that's something that we're currently developing.
All right. So, Richa, thank you for today and thank you for being part of this month-long campaign. You have definitely inspired and intrigued a lot of participants, including me today.
Thank you.
And the clarity with which you spoke was wonderful. And we wish you all the very best for your future endeavors. And we hope that we get to see you soon again. By the way, everybody who has attended this session will be available on YouTube, so you can go and check it out again. In fact, you can even have a conversation with Inclusify. So do write in at hello@inclusify.io. You can give us feedback, you can help us with the new topics we should cover, or you can just have a chit chat with us. We are more than happy to engage with you. With that, a very happy evening, and we'll see you soon next week with our third session for this month.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you. Namaskar.